harsh, yet undeniably refined. Massachusetts does not unfold like a gentle winter postcard. This land steps onto the screen with two faces at once. One bearing the classic grace of New England, the other carrying the white fury of snowstorms sweeping in from the Atlantic Ocean. Lighthouses stand between snow and waves like guardians of memory. Ice-covered harbors preserve the imprint of history. Coastal towns appear both beautiful and tense, as if the ocean constantly reminds people that every moment of calm must be secured by resolve. Inland, you will find deep lakes of contemplation, mountain ranges breathing with northern air, wetlands alive with motion, and roads where time travels beside nature. On this journey, we will pass storm-shaped shorelines, towns that safeguard the soul of New England, wild landscapes that still carry an ancient pulse. Let us begin our exploration of Massachusetts, where quiet strength and dignified beauty remain long after the storms have passed. At Horseneck Beach, what stays in your memory is not summer, but the moment winter tightens its grip on the shoreline until even the sand seems to brace itself. Horseneck Beach is located in Westport, in southern Massachusetts, and forms a wide barrier shoreline with dunes and salt marshes behind it. This protected area covers about 600 acres, includes roughly 2 miles of sandy coast. And it is these dunes that help the beach recover after major storms. When snow begins to sweep across the sea, Horseneck changes its tone quickly. The northeast wind is no longer just cold air, but a force that pushes both water and sand into unrest. The beauty here does not lie in gentleness. It lies in a horizon erased by white, in pale waves striking dark sand, and in dunes that stand like a living barrier between the raging ocean and the fragile estuary within. If you visit Horseneck in the cold season, it does not promise a beautiful beach in the ordinary sense. Yet if you stand long enough in the wind, you will understand that at Horseneck, beauty does not invite you to rest, but compels you to learn respect. And honestly, a place called Horseneck, becoming famous for fierce winds and snowstorms, feels entirely appropriate. From the beginning, its name was never gentle. Scituate Town is a coastal community in the state of Massachusetts, positioned between Boston and Plymouth. That location alone suggests a life that is beautiful, yet never entirely peaceful. Scituate first reveals its charm through a rhythm of industrious labor. Fishing fleets still operate from its harbor, and local authorities maintain dedicated plans and research addressing coastal erosion, flooding, and shoreline resilience. Yet in winter, Scituate does not appear as a gentle postcard of white snow. The water turns darker, the wind grows stronger, and everything along the seawall carries a tension, as if the ocean is preparing to rise in anger. Snow settles on rooftops and roads, waves strike the walls of houses, salt water washes across decks, and the cold freezes into ice immediately after each collision of surf. The name Scituate derives from an old word meaning cold stream, and a fitting origin for a place where winter sea winds can make the entire landscape draw inward. Scituate also carries a long memory, from the first settlement groups in the years 1627 or 1628 to its formal incorporation in the year 1636, according to local historical records. You can witness two faces of Scituate Town within the same place. One Scituate invites you to stroll along the harbor and enjoy the charm of a New England seaside town. Another Scituate lets you hear the wind along the coast, see snow covering everything in white, and understand that beauty here always walks beside endurance. On Cedar Point, in the town of Scituate in Massachusetts, Scituate Lighthouse stands at the harbor entrance like an old guardian of the sea. Completed on September 19th in the year 1811, Scituate Lighthouse is often referred to as the 11th lighthouse of the United States. The structure is not towering, measuring only about 25 feet in height, yet this modest scale gives it the hardened beauty of the New England coast. The stone tower and the keeper's house press closely together, like two parts of a vow that cannot be separated. Many visitors come for the sunrise and the open horizon, where light sweeps across the water and then strikes the white walls of the tower with a clarity that feels swift, clean, and cold. Yet Scituate Lighthouse is not only stone and wind, it also preserves a story long remembered. in September of 1814. And during the War of 1812, Rebecca and Abigail Bates, the daughters of the keeper, played fife and drum to make British forces believe that militia were approaching, causing them to retreat, and thus giving rise to the tale known as the American Army of Two. You cannot help but admire the courage of those two young women, because a drumbeat at the right moment can hold more power than an army that arrives too late. When you stand before Scituate Lighthouse, you are touching the maritime memory of the United States. Any place that continues to keep its light after many extinctions deserves to be said to possess a soul. If you wish to visit a place where nature still holds untamed and primal authority, Plymouth Harbor is a challenge worth accepting. Located in the town of Plymouth, in the state of Massachusetts, Plymouth Harbor forms part of Plymouth Bay. On ordinary days, the harbor is linked with sightseeing boats, fishing activity, and the steady flow of visitors to Plymouth, giving you the sense that history lives side by side with modern coastal life. Yet after a snowstorm, the harbor no longer resembles a tourist destination. It feels like a battlefield after the guns have fallen silent. The wind has passed, but its imprint remains on everything. Wooden pilings along the docks are coated in white snow. Mooring lines freeze stiff in the cold like rods. Lead grey water opens between white surfaces, and cold light reflects in pale tones from both sky and sea. When you stand before the snow-covered harbor, the most meaningful experience is not rushing to capture countless check-in photographs. Walk slowly along the water's edge and listen to your shoes press into compacted snow. Stand still for a few minutes to feel the wind cut across your face, then watch your breath dissolve above the cold water. In that moment, the harbor teaches you that history is always written first by nature before any human hand sets pen to paper. The car glides along roads, cutting through low pine forests, where branches still bend under the weight of fresh snow. Cape Cod National Seashore lies along the Atlantic coast of Cape Cod, known for a shoreline stretching about 40 miles, along with salt marshes, ponds, and upland coastal terrain. The dune system here does not stand still like stone. Sand refuses permanence, it shifts, accumulates, and is continuously reshaped. In the Province Lands area, massive dunes formed after the glaciers retreated, then continued to transform beneath the steady hand of ocean winds across centuries. Snow at Cape Cod National Seashore becomes an elegant garment draped over a landscape already defined by openness and freedom. The soft lines of sand suddenly appear sharper, while dry beach grass rises like strokes of ink on paper. Between the cold grey sea and the pale white shore, streaks of golden brown sand emerge like skin not yet claimed by frost. If you visit Cape Cod National Seashore on snowy days, just walk slowly along the dune trails and observe how color shifts hour by hour and how wind patiently revises the dunes grain by grain. Boston Harbor shines in the manner of a city that knows how to work, how to remember, and how to examine itself upon the water's surface. Linked to the city of Boston, and serving as the estuary of Massachusetts Bay, Boston Harbor functions as a commercial gateway, a tourist destination, and an urban shoreline where daily life unfolds beside the sea. As you walk along the waterfront, you will see that Boston Harbor does not remain still like a painting. Its neighborhoods are connected by the Harbor Walk, a nearly continuous coastal walkway that links multiple districts of Boston to the water and to one another. Clean riverside paths stretch forward, and white sailboats anchor beside outdoor works of art. This continuity gives the experience a cinematic quality, because you can shift from historic streets to modern piers simply by walking. Let the sea wind become the soundtrack, and the sounds of the city replace narration. Yet Boston Harbor is also beautiful, because beneath its glittering surface lies intense political memory. It was here that the Boston Tea Party became a defining moment in American history, when chests of tea were thrown into the water during a tax protest in the year 1773. The water of Boston Harbor may appear calm today, but if you lean closer, yes, you may sense history still stirring beneath it. When visiting Boston Harbor, seek out open stretches where sea wind flows into the streets, and find a vantage point overlooking the islands of the Boston Harbor Island system. This area forms a national and state park complex of 34 islands and peninsulas located remarkably close to the urban center. At Boston Harbor, water reflects city lights, and those lights reflect human ambition. Back Bay is an iconic neighborhood of Boston, and what makes it distinctive is the elegance built upon land reclaimed from the former tidal flats of the Charles River in the 19th century. In Back Bay, beauty does not arise from a single landmark, but from entire rows of brownstone houses standing in measured rhythm with moderate facades. Now, the district reflects the evolution of American architectural taste from the late 19th century into the early 20th century. When a neighborhood preserves aesthetic order for so long, its refinement no longer rests on wealth, but on discipline and culture. Yet Back Bay does not live only in sandstone memory. At Copley Square, you witness a striking dialogue between historic architecture, such as Trinity Church and the Boston Public Library, and the modern glass mass of the John Hancock Tower. Descriptions of Back Bay and Copley Square consistently recognize this cluster as a powerful visual center of Boston. Any city that can place glass beside stone without diminishing the stone understands the meaning of confidence. If we visit Back Bay together, I would first guide you slowly along Newberry Street and Commonwealth Avenue. Then we would move toward Copley Square and the surrounding towers to experience Back Bay as a harmony between the footsteps of shoppers, the sound of traffic, polished glass surfaces, and calm historic facades. We could weave in walking explorations of the streets, pauses in the square, and conclude with a high vantage point from the Prudential Tower to see Back Bay spread below like a map of urban ambition. When you look at Harvard University, you do not see only a school, but a relentless engine turning time into knowledge. Harvard University stands in Cambridge, in the state of Massachusetts, along the banks of the Charles River and was founded in the year 1636, which is why it is often described as one of the oldest universities in the United States. The main campus at Harvard Yard gathers red brick buildings, lawns, libraries, a chapel, and pathways worn by generations of scholars. When snowstorms sweep across New England, the appearance of Harvard changes quickly. Snow settles on brick roofs, clings to bare branches, and makes the deep red walls glow like embers within cold mist. Golden light from library windows spills outward, and the entire campus resembles a sanctuary of knowledge guarding its flame against harsh wind. If you admire beauty only under warm sunlight, you may reconsider when you witness Harvard tested by snow. Students still lower their heads and cross snowy courtyards to reach their classes, and professors still carry books through air that cuts the skin with cold. White snow may soften the tone of the campus bells, but it cannot silence that symbolic sound. This is the beauty of intellectual resolve that persists even when weather urges people to retreat indoors. In a season washed in white, they continue to build their lives page by page. In a place where people brave snowstorms to seek knowledge, that place deserves to be called a sanctuary of learning. At Great Meadows National Wildlife Refuge, beauty comes from the fullness of life, rather than from a single dramatic view. Standing on a trail, overlooking shallow waters and reeds, you realize this is a home for creatures that fly, swim, or hide within soft mud. Great Meadows National Wildlife Refuge is a national wildlife refuge in Massachusetts, located along the Sudbury River and the Concord River. About 85% of the refuge consists of freshwater wetlands, and its primary management goal is to protect habitat for migratory birds and other native species. We would wager that you will appreciate how this place transforms within a single morning, when mist still covers the water like a sheet of dull metal. Water birds cut across in short flights, while shrubs along the marsh hold the small sounds of insects and frogs. As light rises higher, grasslands, open woodlands, and patches of water unfold like connected rooms, each carrying a distinct rhythm of living movement. More than 220 bird species have been recorded here, and that number is not a boast, but a sign that this land continues to perform the ancient work of wetlands, to nourish to shelter and to provide rest. The refuge is also home to the spotted turtle, a species listed as threatened in the state of Massachusetts. At Great Meadows National Wildlife Refuge, you can film smooth transitions from still water to damp meadow, and then to the edge of low forest. This is not only a pleasant place for a walk, but a biological city where residents require no permit to build their nests. Have you ever imagined that you could swim in a lake while reflecting on the vast universe? Visit Walden Pond, a place that is both a glacial lake and a philosophical symbol. Located in Concord, in the state of Massachusetts, Walden Pond is the centerpiece of the Walden Pond State Reservation, managed by the state. It is a kettle lake, formed by glacial activity, created when a block of dead ice melted and left behind a depression that filled with water. Its surface holds an unusual clarity, clear in a cold and deep manner, as if light descends slowly in contemplation before reaching the bottom. The shoreline is embraced by forest, making the water appear like a sheet of grey-blue glass, breathing softly whenever wind passes across it. Not only a popular site for walking, swimming, and boating, Walden Pond also carries heritage value, linked to Henry David Thoreau, and a prominent American writer. Thoreau lived near the pond for 2 years, beginning in the year 1845, and that experience became the foundation for his work Walden or Life in the Woods, published in the year 1854. Thoreau once described this place as a heaven lower than the sky. It must be said that he knew how to promote a destination long before social media existed. When you visit Walden, you are not merely standing before a lake. You are standing within a landscape that transformed private reflection into cultural legacy. Walk slowly around the shore. Pause along the steeper banks. Watch the color of the water shift with the clouds. Then stop by the replica of Thoreau's cabin to connect the physical landscape with his ideas of simple living. A lake shaped by glaciers, yet capable of warming people through serious thoughts about how to live. At Wachusett Mountain, the most astonishing feature is not the elevation of the summit, but an ancient forest clinging just below it like a surviving memory of an older Massachusetts. Situated between Princeton and Westminster, Wachusett Mountain rises about 2,006 feet, which is approximately 611 meters, and it is the highest point in Massachusetts, east of the Connecticut River. If we guide you here, we will not rush you to the summit for a sweeping panoramic frame. We will move slowly through the old-growth forest along the Mid-State Trail. Observe tree trunks shaped by wind. Listen to the shift in sound as air passes over rock ledges, and measure the age of the forest through the rhythm of your own steps. The old-growth forest that follows the rocky ridges below the summit includes ancient trees ranging from 150 to 370 years of age. In recent records of New England old-growth forests, eastern hemlock trees at Wachusett are noted as exceeding 300 years in age. In the past, debates over expanding ski trails reached the buffer zones of this ancient forest. The forest prevailed in that struggle, compelling many to reconsider the value of woods that once seemed silent. Places such as Wachusett Mountain appear even more beautiful after that beauty has been defended through argument, protest, and the persistence of those who understand the forest. Now let us move deeper into what feels like accidental wilderness in a high-clearance vehicle to reach our next destination, Quabbin Reservoir. Because of strict conservation regulations, much of the journey here will be on foot along quiet forest roads. This reservoir lies in central Massachusetts and supplies water to nearly 2.7 million people in the greater Boston region, along with several towns to the west. Yet the beauty of Quabbin is not only its scale. It comes from a flooded valley that has become an immense protected forest and wild landscape. When light passes across the wooded slopes surrounding the water, the surface remains dark and flat, while the forested edges seem to fold inward to guard the silence within. NASA has noted that the dense forests around the reservoir help maintain water clarity, like a living biological filter. The cost of that beauty, however, was considerable. The creation of the reservoir submerged 4 major towns named Dana, Enfield, Greenwich, and Prescott, forcing more than 2,000 residents to leave. Soon afterward, nature reclaimed the landscape. Most of the land surrounding the reservoir remains protected and free from dense development, allowing wildlife such as black bears, moose, deer, coyotes, foxes, bobcats, and bald eagles to thrive. Notably, bald eagles were reintroduced in the year 1982, and the population later stabilized and increased. Each time the shadow of an eagle glides across the sky, the Quabbin Reservoir affirms that wilderness often returns most powerfully where human presence has withdrawn. Continue the journey into the wild and remarkable landscapes of Massachusetts with a visit to the Mount Holyoke Range, a mountain chain in the Connecticut River Valley and part of the Metacomet Ridge. This range runs in an unusual east-to-west direction for about 9.5 miles, with its highest summit, Mount Norwottuck, rising approximately 1,106 feet. The range carries a cinematic contrast. Above stand dark, dry, and sharply edged ridges, while below spreads the soft, wide, and green Connecticut River Valley, where farmland lies out like a tablecloth, prepared jointly by glaciers and fertile silt. On one side lies ancient volcanic rock, and on the other side, rich agricultural soil, as if nature intentionally created contrast so that humans would not need to adjust the colors. From the summit of Mount Holyoke, the painter, Thomas Cole, the founder of the Hudson River School movement, sketched the viewpoint for his famous painting, The Oxbow, in the year 1836. That painting carried this landscape into the visual memory of the United States. Mount Holyoke Range commands respect because it does not need overwhelming height, yet it still compels you to lift your gaze and then lower it again toward the earth with renewed reverence. At October Mountain State Forest, what makes you pause is the sensation of walking within a forest mass too vast for the human eye to hold in a single frame. This is the largest state forest in Massachusetts, covering about 16,500 acres and encompassing varied terrain and multiple habitats within one landscape. We would call it a vast mixed forest ecosystem because its beauty is far from uniform. There are mountain wetlands such as Washington Mountain Marsh, small reservoirs, ridgelines, rocky ravines like Schermerhorn Gorge, and forest stretches where light shifts quickly as clouds move across the Berkshires. That varied topography creates rich ecological diversity for October Mountain State Forest. The forest serves both as a destination for exploration and as a living corridor for many wildlife species of New England woodlands. Three of the most notable animals here are black bears, moose, and bobcats. Black bear populations have increased in recent decades and are primarily distributed in the western region. Black bears possess an acute sense of smell, climb efficiently, and usually avoid humans when possible. They move like quiet, dark forms across fallen leaves, yet their strength as apex predators should never be underestimated. In a large forest with wetlands, water, and extended woodland corridors like October Mountain, the presence of moose changes the scale of the landscape. Low shrubs appear as if a massive body has just passed through. The bobcat is a discreet spirit of the forest. It suits October Mountain because this forest does not seek attention. When you glimpse a bobcat slipping along the edge of snow or rock, it feels as though the entire forest has revealed a secret. If you wish to understand how water can carve stone across millions of years, visit Bish Falls State Park, a fierce yet captivating symbol of nature. Bish Falls State Park is located in the town of Mount Washington in southwestern Massachusetts, near the New York border within the Taconic Mountains. It is the largest waterfall in Massachusetts, with the final drop plunging about 60 feet. What gives this waterfall such striking visual power is the split in its final descent. A massive rock divides the white torrent into two parallel streams before they reunite in the pool below, creating the sense that nature is staging its own cinematic effect without post-production. The basin beneath often glows with deep turquoise tones, especially when light filters through the trees and touches the mist. That beauty can easily distract visitors from the slippery and hazardous rocks. Few natural landscapes manage to appear both forceful and graceful within a single plunge. Since the 19th century, the falls have been a well-known destination in the Berkshire region. Several serious accidents have occurred at Bish Falls, perhaps because its beauty has led many to lower their guard. If you come here, and the best experience is to walk slowly along the trail, hear the sound of rushing water grow louder before you see it, and stand at a designated safe overlook to feel the cool spray rising against your face. Be aware that wet rocks in the area are extremely dangerous, and that the pool beneath the falls is not a permitted place for swimming. At Shelburne Falls, you will encounter a geological formation that looks like open spirals carved into stone. Beside the Deerfield River, in a village set at the foot of the Berkshire Hills, circular potholes appear as if water once possessed its own will and greater patience than any living creature. Shelburne Falls is a small village along the Deerfield River in the Berkshire foothills of Massachusetts, known for the Bridge of Flowers and a rare cluster of glacial potholes near Salmon Falls. More than 50 circular potholes can be seen here, many of them large, polished smooth by swirling water and stones into nearly perfect round openings. They are often described as wonders from the last ice age, and that description is not incorrect within the broader regional context. Yet, there is a valuable geological detail to note. Now, local planning documents clarify that these features were formed by river erosion as the Deerfield River carved its channel and exposed gneiss bedrock, rather than by ice drilling directly into the rock. This unusual landscape represents a collaboration between time, flowing water, and stones rotating like small grinding blades. When you visit Shelburne Falls, stand quietly before a deep pothole. Observe the dark water resting within pale stone. On and listen to the current at the edge of the falls. In that moment, the geological story truly reaches your spirit. Nearby stands the Bridge of Flowers, allowing you to move from the severity of carved rock to the softness of blossoms within a matter of minutes. Now, we are driving along the first historic tourist road in the United States, known as the Mohawk Trail. The vehicle slows as it approaches the famous hairpin turns, allowing you to gaze down into the valley from above. The Mohawk Trail lies in northern Massachusetts and today is primarily associated with Route 2, which passes through forests, rivers, and mountain slopes in the Berkshire and Franklin regions. This road carries the deep memory of an indigenous pathway and later became one of the earliest and most celebrated scenic routes in New England. Yet the word beautiful seems insufficient to describe the Mohawk Trail. Certain stretches cling to mountain slopes like a hand gripping stone bone, with a dark rock wall on one side and an open drop into the valley on the other. Near Whitcomb's summit, the pavement twists through sharp bends, then opens to views so distant that outer ridgelines resemble waves turned to stone. The Mohawk Trail also bears a distinctive historical imprint. It follows the trace of an ancient route linked to indigenous communities, then transformed into a scenic stage for modern travelers. That layering of time gives the Mohawk Trail its depth, and because beneath today's wheels moves a memory of passage that has endured for generations. Amid a densely settled Massachusetts, Mount Greylock still rises with a northern breath, beautiful because it makes no effort to please anyone. Mount Greylock stands about 3,491 feet high, which is approximately 1,063 meters, and it is the highest point in the state of Massachusetts. Its true beauty lies in the upper forests, where the landscape begins to take on a northern character, and this is a subalpine zone with balsam fir and red spruce on the higher slopes, along with plant species commonly associated with boreal habitats. That ecological transition means you are not merely climbing a mountain, but moving through multiple environmental zones within a single ascent. Mount Greylock is also home to a range of notable wildlife, including black bears, bobcats, martens, and snowshoe hares. The bird species linked to boreal forests add further biological depth because they appear only in limited areas elsewhere in the state. Greylock carries a strong layer of literary memory and park history. As one of the oldest state reservations and a summit that entered the imagination of several New England writers, its scenery holds cultural resonance as well as visual power. When visiting Mount Greylock, move from lower forest to higher slopes. Film close details of moss, damp soil, and needle-bearing trunks, then widen your view to the ridgeline and the valleys below to reveal the immense contrast. You climb the mountain to see the view, then realize you have just traveled through two climatic worlds without ever leaving Massachusetts. Massachusetts closes with the echo of wind, snow, and landscapes that have already imprinted themselves upon the traveler's memory. Yet what lingers is not only the sight of snow-covered shores or trees standing in cold mist. It is the feeling of walking through air that cuts the skin, while sensing a steady warmth carried by the rhythm of human life. If you wish to continue exploring places where nature and history still speak in their own voice, subscribe to Planet Vista 4K and travel with us on the journeys ahead. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next adventure.